On Sunday, June 23, SteamRail Victoria ran another round of their popular, if not slightly unusual, steam and electric shuttles. This time doing 5 runs from Watergardens to Sunbury and back. The motive power was provided by a Victorian Railways A2 class 460 hauling the vintage Tait electric multiple unit, although I thought it was very strange seeing a steam locomotive dragging an EMU. In any case, I remember seeing A2 class number 986 in the SteamRail workshops back in October 2013, when she was still undergoing restoration. She didn't re-enter service until 2017. I was lucky to be a passenger on one of the shuttles, since 986 was the only operational steam locomotive I saw throughout the entire Melbourne trip. The other steam locomotives I saw, such as N432, were all static exhibits at the Newport Railway Museum. Skip ahead to the timestamp on screen if you just want to get straight to the excursion footage. We'll also visit the rebuilt Keon Park station on the Mernda Line, with the footage being recorded only 2 days after the station's reopening. I think Straya Trains deserves a shout out here, because if it wasn't for his video on Keon Park, I may never have found out about the station myself. But controversially, the rebuilt station is situated right next to a large apartment building, and from what I've heard, this has resulted in horrible noise and light pollution for the residents. My first catch of the day was a southbound Comenge at Moonee Ponds. On this occasion, 668M was leading the 655 Craigieburn to Flinders Street service. After seeing this train, I walked over to the nearby tram junction, which is served by routes 59 and 82. Then it was time for a ride along the full length of tram route 82, going from Moonee Ponds to Footscray aboard Z3 tram number 205. Route 82 is only 9.2 kilometres long, and it's unusual for being one of only 2 tram routes in Melbourne that don't go through the city centre. The other one is Route 78 from North Richmond to Balaclava. I enjoyed riding aboard the old Z3. Indeed, she was quite a contrast to the big swanky modern E-Class. The Z3 is the only tram type in Melbourne to lack announcements for upcoming stops, and instead of pressing a button, you have to pull a cord to request the next stop. There are a lot of unusual traits that make Route 82 so interesting. And if you want to learn more about said traits, Kazzy, that's spelt Q-A-Z-Z-Y, has he covered with his video on the 82. After a short ride along the quiet streets, hardly surprising given that this was a Sunday morning, we made it to the Footscray terminus. I waited to watch the tram leave before continuing up to Watergardens, where I'd meet the Tait EMU and A2 steam locomotive. Buses were replacing trains on the Sunbury line between North Melbourne and Sunshine. I suspected it had something to do with preparations for the metro tunnel opening next year, because I saw 2 HCMTs passing Sunshine Station on test runs while I waited for my train to Watergardens. The weather couldn't have been more appropriate for a station named Sunshine, and all it was missing was a little tugboat with a Geordie accent. Just after the Comminge pulled in, I noticed this memorial plaque, which was interesting because I had never heard of the Sunshine train disaster before. Meanwhile, this Comminge set, with 631M up front and 662M at the back, sat idling in the platform for at least 25 minutes before heading back up the line to Sunbury. At one point, a southbound freight train came trundling past on the standard gauge line. I think this was train 7AM5, but don't quote me on that. In any case, the train was hauled by NRs 88 and 22, then AN3 and NR56. I was pleasantly surprised to see the AN, since I didn't think any of them were still in service. The Comminge I rode in arrived in Platform 3 at Watergardens, with the Tait EMU and A2 steam locomotive parked on Platform 2 after the transfer run from Newport. Because I don't know too much, if anything, about the Tait's history, it won't be discussed in this video. But seeing this unit means that I had now seen examples of every single one of Melbourne's suburban electric multiple units, except the 4D. This was a 5-car set consisting of coaches 381M, 208T, 230D, 341T, and 317M. For whatever reason, 341T is painted in this bright red livery, unlike the other 4 coaches. It didn't surprise me to see most of the punters crowding around the A2, and I can't blame them, to be honest. Even though I don't really know anything about the A2 class, and I think 986 looks very boring in her plain black livery, I was still happy to see any Australian steam locomotive actually in steam. I moved over to Platform 1 in order to get some better shots of the A2 and Tait. Soon after I switched platforms, the steam locomotive was uncoupled and driven over to Platform 3, closely followed by the Tait set herself.
I think it surprised everybody, yeah. But that's its purpose.
While passengers boarded the Tait for her first shuttle of the day, I noticed the points change again. This Comminge set soon left the siding to run a passenger service down to Sunshine. Around 44 minutes after they first left, 9H6 and the Tait returned from Sunbury, coming in on platform 2 this time. Lots of people were gathered at the northern end of the platform to see the steamer and EMU coming back. I was booked onto the second shuttle, which left Watergardens at 11 o'clock. The train was actually very busy, to the point where it was impossible to get good interior shots with all the people sitting there. The far northern section of the Sunbury line mostly runs through undeveloped rural scenery, and suburban services that continue north of Watergardens only run every 40 minutes in each direction on weekends. There's only one intermediate station on this section, namely Diggers Rest. Originally, St Albans was the terminus for electric suburban services on this line, but the wires were extended into Watergardens in 2002, then to Sunbury in 2012. Thinking back to St Albans, that station was rebuilt in a trench in 2016 as part of the level crossing removal project. Upon arrival in Sunbury, we passed over the site of the former Gap Road level crossing, which was replaced by a road underpass in 2022. The A2 and Tait sat at the platform for a few minutes before returning to Watergardens, but passengers were not allowed to board or disembark from the train at Sunbury. Upon arrival back at Watergardens, The Tait EMU quickly exchanged passengers before running the 11:55 shuttle to Sunbury and back. I didn't stay to watch the departure because I had other places that I still wanted to visit, most notably Keon Park station. This was my train to Sunshine, followed by another journey on a replacement bus as far as Footscray, where I boarded an Extrapolis 100 to continue to Flinders Street. Once back at Flinders Street, I went out to the intersection with Swanston Street again. But this time, I saw lots of Swanston Street trams being forced to turn back just north of the intersection. When I tried looking up Swanston Street, towards the intersection with Collins Street, I couldn't really tell what was going on, but it must have been pretty serious if the trams were having to turn back. At one point, this random E2 tram showed up, and I'm not sure why she was running on Flinders Street since the E's don't normally do so. I thought I'd try riding the City Circle tram as far as Central Pier, where I planned to transfer to a Route 30 service, then to a Mernda Line train at Melbourne Central. But things didn't work out as planned. When I got to Central Pier, I waited a fair while for a Route 30 service, but nothing showed up on that route. Instead, I saw a sizable number of trams on routes 35, 70, 75 and 86. I eventually threw in the towel and just caught a diverted Route 86 service as far as Flagstaff, where I saw a Hurstbridge train arriving and departing ahead of the Mernda service I was actually waiting for. Now we're finally at Keon Park, the 50th station to be rebuilt as part of the level crossing removal project. The original station opened in 1929 and closed in January 2024, with the rebuilt version opening 5 months later, and only 2 days before I went there. Down at ground level, you can get a better view of what I think is the old level crossing site. Turning around to face the staircase up to platform level, you can also see the bottom of the lift shaft. But I couldn't ignore the elephant in the room, in the form of the station's poor location in relation to the apartment block. The whole station had this unusual smell, reminiscent of a new car or new shoe smell, if that makes any sense. While I was here, I saw 2 Extrapolis 100 sets on southbound empty stock moves, as well as 2 normal passenger services. All services on the Mernda and Hurstbridge lines, otherwise known as the Clifton Hill Group, are run by Extraps these days. I made it back from Keon Park to Southern Cross just in time to catch the 16:30 service to Geelong. It was formed of 2 Vlocity DMUs, and the train was so packed that I initially didn't get a seat, until enough people got off around Deer Park and Tarneet. Some of the passengers were dressed in black and red jerseys, which led me to believe that they were coming home from an AFL match at the MCG, although I am not an AFL fan myself. Despite only being 47 kilometres from Southern Cross, Little River Station still felt like it was out in the middle of nowhere, or at least a very small town. As for why I went here at all, it wasn't just to see what the velocity is like from a passenger's perspective, although I will say that the seats are very comfortable. The main reason was to see an NR locomotive hauling the Overland again, and this time NR 59 was doing the honours. It wasn't long before another Geelong-bound train arrived, and the timing worked out quite well, as you'll see in the next clip. By chance, my train back to Southern Cross was one of the later generation Velocities, with the updated cab front. I got back to Southern Cross just in time to see N461 leaving with the 1843 service to Swan Hill. I knew the Ns had EMD prime movers, but I didn't expect this one to sound exactly like a KiwiRail DFB. I know that the Overland takes a rather circuitous route to get into Melbourne, but I still thought that she would get to Southern Cross ahead of the Velocity. As it turns out, my expectations were subverted, and I was now able to see NR 59 under better lighting. Before returning to Mooney Ponds for the night, I filmed another E2 tram out on Spencer Street as she made her way to East Brunswick. The day's rail fanning ended soon after I saw this tram.
Craig into a train. Craig into a train.